Make a Path presents Let's Talk. Alright, Deadheads, you know I'm out of town, and I think I finally found a safe spot from the walkers to do this review. This was a great episode. With episode 10, we focused in depth on the story, the characters, and the atmosphere. With episode 11, the more prominent focus is going to be on adapting and remixing. Let's talk. The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 11, The Distance. Alright, Deadheads, to start it off, I thought Aaron's comment in the barn was actually maybe a friendly jab at Robert Kirkman. Aaron told the crew that nothing he could say can convince them to come back with him. In the comic, that's exactly what happened. In the show, he had pictures. Our very first look at the iconic place of Alexandria was in these really crappy photos, and I thought that was an excellent touch to help flesh out the environment, the people, and the story. As far as fleshing out the story and the dialogue, Aaron's pitch to bring them back to Alexandria was very, very similar to the comic book, but it was just strengthened a bit. Comments like, "Together we are strong, but with you we can be even stronger." Now that also brings up the question, are they hinting at previously knowing the Alexandrians? Do they know of the scavengers or the wolves already? Is that what he's hinting at? Or is he talking about simply thriving as a community? The more we are, the stronger we are. And the moment that Rick started walking up to Aaron, excitement just started welling up in my chest. I knew it was coming, and I love that. That is one thing I even talked about in my prediction video that I just needed to see in the adapting it to the screen from the comic. And funny enough, Michonne got Abraham's comic book quote. Being a massive comic book fan of The Walking Dead, I'm not mad at all that Michonne got that quote. It's quite the opposite. I actually think that quote fit better in the TV universe with Michonne than it did with Abraham. Instead of catering to the comic book fans and forcing Abraham to have that quote, I like that they took the risk, what small risk it was, and put that quote in Michonne's mouth to say. And it also fits that Michonne can understand the dark place that Rick is at right now. And she also pushed for the truth of Alexandria. She wants to know. In episode 9, we saw her craving a place to go. If there's a little bit of hope, just a glimmer, she wants to try for that. And with her trying to reach out for that hope, she also has to deal with Rick's brutality. And his brutality is understandably so. What happened at Terminus, what happened with the governor, what happened in general. It's hardening up his spirits. It's putting up these walls to protect his family. And the directing, I do want to say right now, the lines that were spoken and the way they were filmed, the camera angles, the directing, I thought it came together in a wonderful masterpiece. Especially Rick looking out that crack of the barn door, and he says, just because we're good people doesn't mean we won't kill you. Now pushing forward in the episode, we get our crew that is out looking for essentially Eric. They're looking around the area, and Michonne and Glenn have a wonderful back and forth. They make very valid points, and it seems like Michonne's character is staying consistent the past few episodes, where she's trying to pump the brakes of the crew. The crew's going full force, pedal to the metal. We are a force to be reckoned with, essentially. And Michonne is saying, what if these people have nothing to do with it? What if we just run up on random survivors? What if we just run up on people that are like us, hardened, essentially caring, compassionate, but still want to protect themselves? We might end up fighting a foe that should be an ally just because we all have this mentality that everyone is to be feared. Glenn's dialogue was great at that moment. He said, if they are like us, we should be afraid. And I thought that was beautiful, That type of reflection, especially Glenn this whole episode. He had great dialogue, he had great action, great chemistry with the other actors as well, and it ran beautifully the entire episode. And then back to the barn, the applesauce scene. Probably one of the newest scenes in the Walking Dead universe that was never in the comic book, but in the show it works, and I thought it was awesome. I don't think anyone's going to forget the applesauce. There's going to be so many memes on that, so many jokes on the applesauce, and I thought that the humor in it is what made it work. It's like They took all the humor out of The Walking Dead for a couple episodes to really bear the weight down that this was a dark place the group was at. And now that the clouds are shifting and sunlight is coming in just a little bit, the writers are bringing back a little bit more humor. And I thought the timing of the humor was perfect. The dialogue was great. The back and forth between Aaron and Rick was perfect. They nailed that scene. No one is forgetting that little applesauce scene anytime soon. And hey, as much as I talk shit on Rosita, she had some lines this episode and she killed it. And she kicked ass. Let's not forget Rosita. I do want to insert one tiny flaw I did have with this episode. Keep in mind, it could have been my TV and the settings on the TV, not necessarily the program I was watching. But when Michonne was giving her heartwarming speech, or the push ahead speech, mood-enhancing music, let's call it. It seemed like that drowned out her dialogue a little. Again, it could have been my settings, but it just felt like that music, the mood-enhancing, either didn't need to be there or need to be turned down a bit. If you guys didn't notice that, I'm going to chalk it up to my settings. And I do love how the group together is making choices. They don't have a set council, but they're all making choices. They're expressing what they feel. And Daryl, finally, he piped up at the very end of a conversation, again with some humor, and this time I thought it was done a lot better than during the "We Are the Walking Dead" speech. I'm still stuck on Daryl should have just quietly walked away in disagreement and not said anything. In writing, this is called a setup. Fucker scared me. Now, I was saying, I love this setup where Rick and Michonne are talking about hearing nothing at Terminus and the prison. Hearing nothing basically equals bad things are gonna happen or happening. Now, that's called a setup, and later on, we're gonna get the payoff. In the car, Michonne gives Aaron the 3 questions. These are 3 questions that I believe, were first introduced to in season 4. I could be mistaken, but it's great that they're pulling things from other seasons. I really, really love that. Aaron answers the 3 questions, and we can mark that down on the facts sheet that Aaron has killed 2 people because they were trying to kill him. Some might look at that and say, well, Aaron's not as hard as the others, but keep in mind, Glenn has not killed anyone to date, and I would count him as being pretty tough. And she asks him these questions because she sees the images of his house, and she's looking through the pictures of Alexandria, and she notices something odd. There's no people. Aaron gives an excuse for that, but Michonne's not really buying it. For the first time, Michonne is probably having some doubt. And I think this was actually a very wonderful tool for the writers to do, because we know we don't get to Alexandria in this episode. So for the writers to say, let's keep the people hidden, let's keep some of it still a mystery, I thought that was an awesome call. I absolutely love that. Next, we get some amazing mathematics. Car plus Walker herd at nighttime equals fucking awesome. Now, one of the top things I love most about this episode was the flare scene. That flare scene was straight perfect. We get the flare, and our group is now nervous and concerned to what the flare means. Aaron, on the other hand, he's done. He had patience with Rick and the group. He allowed them to tie him up. He allowed them to punch him in the face. He allowed them to take his goods, Eric's goods. But the flare to Aaron means Eric is in danger, and he's done. He says, I'm out, I'm done, let me go. He even boots the car door open, sending Michonne flying. Don't ever do that again, Aaron, but I still thought that was pretty awesome. That's my girl, though, so keep your shit chill next time. Now, what is going to happen next, we don't get enough of in the world of The Walking Dead. Nighttime, awesome, scary, tension-filled scenes, fighting walkers. Glenn almost gets chomped on. The whole scene was just awesome. We don't get enough of it, but I'm counting that whole nighttime flare in the mouth with the walker. You can argue some CGI here and there, but I loved it. It did look like practical effects when the walker was on the ground, digital effects when he was standing up. I didn't look at the behind the scenes, but I thought it was great. Then we get something with Glenn that ties back to episode 9 and episode 1. But then in the woods, he sees Aaron. Aaron's in trouble. He stops, thinks about it a moment, and he says, no, that is who I am. So Glenn goes and saves Aaron, and this is very reminiscent to something that happened in the comic where Glenn gave Aaron a gun, and I really wanted that scene to happen in the show, and I didn't think it was going to happen because of the direction they were going, and it turned out that it did happen. I was disappointed we didn't get the whole but you had to give him that gun scene because in the comic, Glenn gave him a real big gun. In the show, he had his little revolver, and again, I'm really glad the writers are not forcing comic scenes that don't fit. Because although it would not have fit, I would have loved it, you know, as a comic fan. But then again, I probably would have picked on it because it didn't fit. So again, the writers get credit for adding some comic book material, but not feeling like they have to add too much and make it feel forced and placed in there on purpose just to cater to us comic fans. Now, with the group back together, we get an Aaron and Eric reunion. Yes, they are a gay couple, and the reunion showed that they are non-threatening. It also humanized them. Rick saw it. He might not want to trust it, but he saw it. The group, on the other hand, they seen it too, and they want to trust it even more. The feeling and emotion and interaction between Aaron and Eric was genuine, and the group is ready to take that risk. Rick, like he says, nothing will make his mind up until he sees it himself. And then we get an Alexandria name drop. I knew they wouldn't change the name of Alexandria, and I thought that was a horrible, horrible rumor. But we get the Alexandria name drop. So glad they went with the name Alexandria still. And we get a Pete name drop. Now, this is called a setup. It could be a setup for a payoff later in the season. Unfortunately, I think it is. You guys know I wanted the Pete scene to happen in season 6, but now we can guarantee it's happening in season 5 off that name drop alone. We also get a very scenic look at Washington, D.C. This was something a lot of fans were talking about how they can do it, because you obviously need green screen. They're filming in Georgia still, and the way they did it was not as up close as in the comic, because in the comic we were down in the streets and we got the backdrop very close. This one, the scenic view, again, it fit. The writers are not forcing comic material in it. They're placing it where it fits, and again, I'm still highlighting the credit they deserve for that. The writers, producers, anybody on the creative team essentially gets credit for not forcing things that don't fit, essentially, how it was in the comic. And then we get some more humor. I absolutely love this scene, and a lot of people might call these kind of scenes filler, but I don't at all. We get Abraham seeing that there's a light on, some kind of voltage light, and he's like, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it. He's giving them hope. All of a sudden, we cut to them broke down in the street. Oh man, shit, you know? And we get the humor of that fact. We also get a couple things out of this. We get a Dale callback scene when Dale showed Glenn where the battery was in the RV. Now Glenn is using that knowledge. It's kind of like a Dale callback, and I thought that was absolutely great. We also get a little bit of dialogue with Rick and Michonne about going to that dark place. Michonne is warning Rick, and again, here's another setup. Michonne talking to Rick about not going darker, not letting that darkness take a hold of you, is the setup for something that's going to happen to Rick inside the Alexandria safe zone. And I just want to share that with you guys now. If you didn't pick up on that, you're not aware of that, it's setting that up beautifully too. And we also get Rick, and I'm going to talk about this in my prediction video, Rick stashes a gun. And I firmly believe we have already seen scenes already of Rick going to retrieve that gun once he's shaven. And I'm going to show you what those scenes are in the prediction video. And also another thing we got from that breakdown scene, Abraham makes a funny comment saying we should just paint it red and slap a ladder on it. That explains what happened to the fire truck. A lot of people were put off about, well, what happened to the fire truck? Damn it, I need to know everything. Now you know. Broke down. You know, we guessed it before, but this is the confirmation that a lot of fans wanted. Now, getting to the Alexandria safe zone, I'm going to have to put this out there. I have not seen anybody's thoughts or opinions on getting to the safe zone. So I'm not sure how the fans are reacting. So I'm going to tell you right now, my untainted opinion about this is it was wonderful. I personally couldn't have written it any better. I absolutely love that. Not only do we get a close-up on Rick's eyes, we get that worry in his eyes, that worry and fear, and then he hears something. And here's the payoff. The setup was earlier when him and Michonne were talking about not hearing anything getting to Terminus, not hearing anything getting to the prison. They're at Alexandria right now, and he hears kids, and this is the payoff. He's relieved somewhat, probably a lot. He still has his guard up, but he's very relieved. They get out of the car, and I think this is the perfect time for Carol's little confirmation that he did the right thing. She says, even though you were wrong, you still did the right thing. Something like that. I forget the exact quote, but you guys get what I'm saying. For Carol to say that, that was perfect, because we all know Carol has been wrong, even though she was right. Again, you can argue that fact. And now our group is at the Alexandria Safe Zone, and I am so eager for the next episode. This week is going to be the longest wait ever. We are now at a point where this show is going to change forever. The change in Alexandria is different, way different than what they were doing previous. And it might not be noticeable at first, but when you look at it as a whole, in retrospect, change is coming, and I am thrilled. I cannot wait to see where the show goes from here with the adapting the material and remixing it. I am in love with this, the final end of this season, looking forward to Alexandria itself. And again, I'm asked this a lot as a comic book fan. People ask me, should I read the comic book? I don't want to spoil it for the show. Let me tell you right now, this episode, and a lot of comic book fans will tell you down below, they agree, this episode highlights the fact why I highly recommend you read the comic books now. This episode meant a lot to me because of stuff from the comic. If you guys are comic book fans and you agree, disagree, leave your opinions down below. I also want to hear what you guys thought of this episode down in the comments below. And last thing I want to mention is, guys, I am out of town. This is probably the only video I will be out of town doing, so I apologize. I thought it would be a nice touch. I saw this fence. I thought it would be a nice touch for the material and going into the safe zone. I thought the timing was right. If you heard birds or planes or automobiles or dogs and that annoyed you, I am very sorry. I thought creatively it was an interesting way to do the review. If you didn't like it, I do apologize, and I am sorry if I wasn't able to articulate this better than I usually do or add photos that I usually do. Okay, so if you're a first-time viewer, trust me, it gets a lot better than this. So if you're a Walking Dead fan, hit that subscribe button and kick your shoes off because you're finally home. Leave all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'm done talking. It's your turn. Subscribe now.